Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, and so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show. Booyah!
Oh, yeah, baby! It's the ultimate Cleveland sports show. Jay Crawford is sick. We wish Jay the best. Hope he gets better. We've got an empty chair where Brad Sellers. There's Brad.
There he is.
Hey. Better late than never.
Hey. He came with his microphone and earpiece in.
Look at that. Look at that. Brad, there he is. And a lot to get to. The Guardians, guys, are the champions of the American League Central. A lot to get to on that. The voice of the Guardians, the great Tom Hamilton, is going to join us in about 30 minutes. We'll talk with John Costco of PFF. He's going to join us at around noon, so we'll look forward to all that. We'll get to the Browns later, and we'll talk about some weekend football as well. But, guys, Jason, let me start with you. The Guardians, lock it down. Great weekend. They sweep the Rangers. The White Sox and Twins fall apart. Not only, I said we'll start with you, but I'll get to you in 10 seconds. Not only did none of us expect the Guardians to win the division, we would have signed for just being in the hunt in September. Instead, they clinch with 10 days to go in the season.
And they took the souls of the Twins and the White Sox.
Completely.
Just gutted them within the last couple of weeks. You know, it was funny when I was filling in for Zach Meisel. He was on paternity leave, and I did a thing for The Athletic. Mid-season, who's your pick to win the division? I picked the White Sox. And I thought the division could keep the Guardians in the hunt. Not necessarily winning it, obviously, but just the division wasn't great. I thought it could keep them in the hunt of the division race and the Wildcard race. They completely exceeded my expectations, everybody else's expectations. And this is a team that can be a problem in the postseason.
It definitely can.
The way that they run the bases, the way that they attack the bases, the way that they pitch, the way that they defend. Listen, I know the Astros are the Astros and they're the behemoth, and I know the Yankees are the Yankees. I don't think there's any team in the American League that wants anything to do with the Guardians right now, the way that they're playing.
I completely agree with that, Jason. The Guardians are the first team to win their division as the youngest team in baseball since the 1986 Mets. Now,
we know how that wound up.
They won the World Series, one of the greatest World Series ever against the Red Sox.
Thanks,
how about
Bill
this
Buckner.
young team?
Man, before we get to that, man, I just want to show you my hat real quick. This G. Bush, a.k.a. the Mad Hatter. This is a barbershop limited edition. You know, right now it's Cavs, Cavs Day. They doing press media all of a sudden. You know, Cavs is relevant. I just had to show. This is the NBA Finals edition right there. See that? Yeah, y'all don't got this one, man. You know, as always, man. You know how we do. But back to these Indians. Guardians.
Yeah, let's go.
The Guardians, I'm going to tell you what. When you can get somewhere and you doing it with all young pieces and parts, that's so impressive, right? Because you didn't expect them to hold up down the backstretch. But not only did they not hold up, they put their foot on the gas. I was impressed with having all those division foes between the White Sox, between playing the Twins, all those games with a few weeks left to go. We foreshadowed it on the show. And for them to continuously come out, not only to hold the lead, they put some distance on these guys. And you could just see the level of confidence. And when he, you showed me a little clip there of I forget who was talking, but he said
Cal Quantrill.
Yeah, he basically says, man, Tito got the soldiers lined up. You know what I'm saying? When somebody is saying that means they completely bought into what we doing.
No doubt.
They completely bought in. And I tell you what, this is one of the most pivotal, best opportunities for the Guardians to just not go from a cool little story or third string in the city to being a possibility of they're a real player and getting new fans and new people into the organization and into the ballpark.
One thing I think that's worth noting, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Guardians about this postseason, and we should.
Yeah.
But you can't tell the full story of the Guardians without telling the fact that they're the youngest team in baseball. And oh, by the way, they have one of the deepest farm systems still to come.
Yeah,
they do.
Some of their best players aren't here yet. Let me say it again. Some of their best players aren't here yet, and they just won the division as the youngest team in baseball.
It's amazing.
So maybe the Dodgers are the only team you could say is better positioned in terms of roster and farm system. And obviously the Dodgers have more flexibility to spend as well.
Go back.
The Guardians are positioned as well as anybody in baseball
You
right
have to
now.
go back and think about this, Jason, that, I remember the All-Star break before the trade deadline. We were people in this town were complaining that the Guardians didn't make a move for some experienced talent. And I think we said on our own panel that sometimes you have to realize that people who see people every day may know a little bit more than you know. And I knew they had a feeling about this. Now you think about when Lindor got traded out of town, you got Rosario and Jimenez back, right? They're paying well more dividends here. I don't think we got
especially
burned at all.
per dollar spent.
Right.
I'm glad you mentioned that trade. Look at that trade. Frankie had 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah.
And look what they got. Jimenez and Ahmad Rosario. Go look
Plus
at what,
2 minor leaguers, too.
Go look at what Baltimore got for Manny Machado.
Nothing.
When they traded him with a half a season to go. Kind of really at the same time.
Yeah.
You're only talking about postseason. They had 1 postseason.
Right.
And Baltimore got nothing for Machado. The Guardians just hit a home run on that
Well, I think
trade.
the other thing that you have to consider is this, that not only did you get players back, you got youth, you got lower payroll, you got longevity in a market like Cleveland, right? Yeah. So Cleveland has to have ramp-up time. In order, any franchise has that ramp-up time to be able to get to a payroll point because you're going to read you're typically going to read a crossroads at this city, and this city's like of this size, right? Then you have to make a decision. We've got youth. You think about this. We're going into there was no way that anybody thought the Guardians were going to win the division. None.
Nobody thought. And if you think about this team, and by the way, I should bad job out of me, credit to Mandy Belder's excellent work for MLB.com covering the Guardians. She had that. I saw her. I read that stat about them being the first youngest team to win the division since the Red Sox in her column. I read it this morning. So shout out to her on that. But think about this, guys. I mean, first of all, before the season, I think a lot of people would have bet the Guardians were more likely to finish 5th than 1st in this division. Certainly,
I think that's a reach. But
maybe that's a reach. But certainly, most people had them in 3rd place in this division, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, the Tigers and Royals didn't come along like some thought they might. If you look at it, going into the season, they had holes all over the lineup. Right now, it feels they still have some holes, but not nearly as many as coming into the season.
No.
You would have thought, if their offense was going to be good, that Franmil Reyes would have had a monster season. Coming into the season, you thought he was your 2nd best hitter. He got cut.
Yep.
Got cut.
Yep.
Right? Like, Oscar Gonzalez was a guy, they left off the 40-man roster at one point. He could have been claimed in the Rule 5 draft.
Yep.
Right? Stephen
Would
Kwan,
have been claimed if there was
right,
one.
if there was a Rule 5 draft.
Yeah.
Stephen Kwan is a guy who was like a nice prospect, but like he's going to finish 2nd Rookie of the Year. And a lot of seasons he would have won Rookie of the Year. I know a lot of fans here are mad, think he should win. Julio Rodriguez is the Rookie of the Year.
He's a transcendent talent.
Julio
Rodriguez.
Stop it. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
He's the Rookie of the Year. But I think Kwan's going to finish 2.
Probably.
Or maybe Adley Rush. He's up there.
You get concerned that people are not going to pay attention because it's Cleveland and whatever else. So
but he's in the mix,
worthy
right?
of being
Like
2.
he doesn't hit a lot of home runs. That's why he doesn't get recognized as much. You can go on and on, like Tristan McKenzie putting it all together and staying healthy.
Yep.
The bullpen, we knew it had potential, but not like this. I mean, the bullpen's been just absolutely phenomenal, and now they can rest them well during the stretch because, in particular, Clase and Karinchak need some rest. I mean, there's a lot to like both now and for the next bunch of years.
Do you guys think that because you have to watch baseball a little bit differently, that's the reason why it may not be a lot of people don't understand how good this team is, right? Because you got to watch baseball in a way where, 1 or 2 games or even a whole series doesn't really mean that much in the scheme of the long process. It's like you kind of mentioned it when you talked about what you thought the team was going to be, and Franmil Reyes not even on the team. It's such a long process.
Right.
It's almost like you start school in 1st grade, and by the time you're done, you're in 4th grade. Mm-hmm. It's like that's how much has transpired, and sometimes people just don't get like, hey, this team is actually very good.
Well, think about it this way, right? Like, when you have a great player, let's say LeBron, how many bad games does LeBron have in a season? 5? Maybe. If that many? I mean, like, he doesn't have a lot of bad games. Nick Chubb, how many bad games does Nick Chubb have in a season? 2? Maybe? And probably it's not even his fault that the defense was so great, their offensive line sucked that day, whatever it is. The greatest players in baseball that are hitters will have 50 days where they don't do much. It's just the nature of the game. So, like, if you're not watching all the time, and most people are not watching 162 baseball games, then you don't, and especially this team, because baseball, unlike basketball and football, has so many stats that some people are confused. Like, Well, I see Stephen Kwan. He doesn't have a lot of home runs. He doesn't have a lot of RBIs. So if I'm a casual observer, I might think, well, I guess this guy's not that good. But there's other parts of the game that he's excellent
He
at.
could win a Gold Glove
Absolutely.
as a rookie in left field.
Absolutely. Look at their defense in the outfield, especially with Will Brennan in right, is top notch.
I want to ask Cammy about that. We have Tom Hamilton on. I think there's a spot for Will Brennan on this postseason roster.
100%.
I think that's why they brought him up now to figure that out.
100%. Yeah, I'm starting him against righties in right field. I'm doing that, and I'm DHing Gonzalez against righties.
Yeah,
that's what I would do.
Yeah,
that's just crazy. The fact that, and I'll give him credit for this. I've always said I'm more of a youth guy. If it ain't much of a difference between a young dude and an old guy, I'm taking the young dude, even if you don't got no experience, because I can look at your upside and get you some experience. And that old dude, sure, he has a level of experience. Sure, he's been there before. But you get in a position where you're the Guardians, and like you said, they best players is in minor leagues. That's so hard to fathom at the way, especially the way the middle infielders are playing. Like, so you telling me we got better guys than this in the farm system? You start to think about what it could be.
Well, so you talk about this, G. You know, when you get to playoffs, I don't care what sport you're in, there's a different mentality. First, the organization has to understand what their capabilities are. Am I capable? How far am I capable of going, right? Or am I setting this up for next year? You know, because sometimes you just play with house money and go as far as you can go. Right. So the Guardians have a chance. Baseball is different than basketball. It's different than football. They have a chance here, right? And so I will tell you that there's a value on an experienced player when you get to a playoff, right? Because they have been there, have seen some things. The other people are learning on the fly.
You think they have a legitimate chance?
Well, here, first of all, I don't think Gonzalez, a guy who has 2 years of 30 straight homers in the minor league, I don't think that's a guy that I'm sitting down and just DHing, right? I got young guys. I'm going to use these dudes, right? Mm-hmm. But I know there's a place for some older people here to school these young fellas up out of here, right? Because you're in a place here, G, where you don't know where this team is going. There's nowhere in the world we thought this team was going to be here. So I can't sit there and say that, well, you're going to be out in the first round.
It's one of those, they don't know what they don't know.
No, they don't.
It's
dangerous.
And I wonder if it gets brought up like one of these streaks. Like the Indians/Guardians have lost 8 straight playoff games.
Yep.
And they've lost 11 of 13 since they were up 3-1 in the World Series. Remember, the following year, took the first 2 from the Yankees. I was just talking about it this morning. Remember that game 2? They won, I think it was 7-6 in 13 innings here in Cleveland. And then they got swept by the Yankees, and the next 2 years they got knocked out. Or 2 of the next 3 years, whatever it was. And so they've lost 8 straight playoff games. I think it'll be big. And first of all, it's a young team. Most of these guys haven't been here for any of those outside of
I don't
Ramirez.
think any of them have.
Well,
Bieber was even on the, I guess Jose. Bieber wasn't even on the roster when they got swept by Houston. He didn't pitch, right? He was hurt or he was in the bullpen. I can't remember now. He didn't pitch. No, I think Jose's the only one probably on this team that
maybe Brian Shaw was he? No, he had gone. He had left, right? Was he gone?
No, Bieber and Jose were on the roster.
Yeah, but Bieber didn't pitch against Houston.
Yeah. But again, most of these guys are new. I don't know that their 8 straight losses in the playoffs really are a big factor. I mean, it's huge that the whole series in this first round with this new format is at home. Yeah. So it's a 3-game. It's a best of 3. Right now they play the Mariners, but that's far from decided because the Rays are only a half game ahead of the Mariners.
And we were talking for the show. The Mariners are wrecked right now. Julio Rodriguez is on the DL with back problems. Yeah. Who knows if he can come back or not? If that changes their team completely.
And Suarez, who's been a good hitter for them too, is also hurt. Yeah. The Guardians have no injuries. No, they have 2 guys on the injured list right now. Anthony Gose, who cares, and Plesac, who's coming off the injured list. Yeah. Here's the wild card stand. Can you guys put that back on? So Toronto, I've said that I'd like the Guardians to play Toronto because even though Toronto's got the best lineup, I don't think their pitching is very good. The Mariners do have excellent pitching. Yeah. I would actually argue 1 through 4 in their rotation, they might be slightly better than the Guardians. If you go 1 through 4. Well, but you know what? I should nix that because you won't go 4 in this round. You're only using 3. 1 through 3, it's neck and neck. It's neck and neck. Their pitching is really good. Yeah. The Guardians have a better lineup than the Mariners, especially with no Rodriguez and Suarez. If those guys are out, their lineup is below average, I'd say. Yes. Tampa's lineup is also not great. They also have the good pitching. Toronto, opposite. Great lineup, mediocre pitching. Their bullpen I don't like at all outside of their closer. Romano has been good. But even the Orioles, 4 games out, could get into the mix there. But none of those teams are playing great baseball right now. Doesn't mean they can't be when the playoffs start in 2 weeks, but none of them are playing great.
But that's the key. Baseball more than anything is about getting hot. If you get into the playoffs, we know. If you look at basketball, the Cavs were young. They had a nice little nucleus. There was a nice little story. They couldn't get in the playing game because people started playing defense and was like, okay, we really want to play. In baseball, that's different. Like, you can't, if somebody jumps on you quick and they put 3 runs up in the first few innings, you automatically is tight in the first, because it's a best of 3. You tight. You like, oh, well, we lost this one. We got to win 2 straight.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. So you go into the playoffs, it's totally different. Now here, you got a bunch of young kids. You saw after the clinch, right? You got a bunch of young dudes running around here. They're happy, all excited, right? Which they should be, because they don't even know that they shouldn't be here, right? So when you sit here, now we go into the playoff scenario, and Jason will know what I'm talking about. Sometimes when you walk into the playoff forum, guess what? It's Broadway, baby, bright lights and showtime here. And somebody can get shell-shocked here, and you're like, oh, and all it takes me is 1 or 2 games to shell-shock you, and I can get on by you. That's why you have to have people of calming influence in there to keep people on a level playing field.
You can't add veterans now.
But I'm saying in the mix of the entire club, right? Somebody's got to be guiding this ship in.
That's Terry. Right. That's Terry Francona on this team.
And Jose, right? Jose's been there, done that. That's up to Tito and Jose. I don't think these guys are going to get tight. Now, maybe if they're losing the first game, I don't know. You never know. I think it goes back to what I said. They don't know what they don't know. 100%. And by the way, that
makes them extremely dangerous.
When we get to the offseason, like this pass that the ownership is getting now because the team is playing great, that goes away in the offseason. Just because the team is really good, because of the Guardians have a great front office and a great manager, doesn't give the owner, let's not give him a pass so he says, you know what, we should just keep the payroll right where it is. We don't want that. We do want them to spend some money. But the front office and the manager is the best combo in all of baseball. I don't think there's any doubt about it. If you look at GM or front office, you put Antonetti and Chernoff together. GM manager combo, I wouldn't trade it for anyone in the league.
I absolutely believe Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff got Al Avila and Dayton Moore fired. The Tigers and
100%.
The Tigers and the Royals fired their GMs this year.
Yes.
And I have no doubt, and John Sherman, the owner of the Royals, came from here.
Yeah.
Looked at those guys and said, why can't you do that?
100%.
Why can't you do what Cleveland is doing? Cleveland is doing it with less than we are. We're a small market team. We have more fun. The Kansas City and Detroit both have deeper pockets than Cleveland. How come you guys can't figure out what they've done? I mean, how many years?
They're not even close.
No, not even close. And I absolutely believe that the Guardians got those guys fired.
The difference here,
I agree.
You can tell the difference here is organization, how this is built. You have guys on the ground level that know what they're doing. They know talent. They know how to put things together. The management level from the operation of this team, they understand exactly what to do. And I will just contradict you on the other side of this. You have to. It's not about being able to spend the money, right? It's being able to be not only efficient, but survive here in a market here that's only going to bear so much. You look about halfway through the season, not halfway through, more than 3/4 of this season, we were still begging for people to go down and watch the Guardians, right? Those dollars add up. This is not New York. This is not L.A. This is not Chicago.
We all know that, Brad, but you've got to spend more than they're spending.
Here,
I don't care what the
I'm not saying that's here. You can spend, but you have to spend differently. I can't spend like I can spend in a bigger market. I cannot do that, right?
I know, but nobody's asking them to do that.
No, but I'm saying when you're running an organization, I'm talking to here. I run an organization, right? I know exactly how it runs, right? And contrary to what public belief, there's limited dollars here, and you have to be able to spread those dollars around so that the machine goes forward. And some years it's a little more here, some years it's a little less here, but it's not.
Your town's not a billionaire, though.
No, but it's a harder science. When you're not in the bigger market.
I look at it like this. I've always said this. If you're going to be in the game, if you're an owner, you got to understand what the rules of engagement are when you get into the game. And if you are saying, I want to go into this, because it's a business, they could have went into any other business, restaurants, land, they could have did a lot of the things, but they wanted to get into professional sports. And the nature of professional sports is you got to understand that to be competitive, you might have to go a little more into your pockets than you're willing to do.
This business. Yeah.
You got to, maybe your profit margin, you might want 20%.
And we know they can do it because they did it for a number of years. But I don't want to dwell on that right now.
I just want to make one quick point as we're talking about money. Yeah. Zach Meisel wrote for us last week, I think. They offered Carlos Rodon $60 million over 3 years, which shocked me because Rodon's had a ton of arm injuries. Of all the guys to invest in, I was shocked that they picked that guy.
Yeah.
But they offered him $60 million over 3 years. So they tried to spend last year.
Yeah.
They turned around and put that money back into Jose. As we talk about spending money, if they decide Stephen Kwan is for real and they sign him to a 6-year extension because he's got 5 years left, 5 years of control left, if you sign him to a 6 or 7 year deal, I'm okay with that. If you decide Oscar Gonzalez is the real deal, he's got 5 years of control.
Jimenez, they should be signed right.
Jimenez,
be a little harder,
sure, but now's the time.
Now's the time. They should lock it. And they did that in the past. They did it with Brantley. They did it with Kipnis back in the day.
It's getting harder though. Agents are now advising guys not to sign those deals. It's harder now than ever. You have to basically get them in year one.
Yeah,
because it's already. We've had the conversation about Bieber. It's too late. It's too late with Shane. He's down to 2 years of control.
I would try to sign. Honestly, well, we'll get to that this offseason. But I'll tell you what has really taken the Guardians now to this next level is that for years they've been a great management, great manager, great at developing pitching. Their one flaw until recently had been their ability to draft and develop hitters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They had a lot of their high draft picks at offensive players had not panned out, right? Two most notably, who still haven't, Bradley Zimmer and Clint Frazier, who are barely in the major leagues, right?
Right.
And now, if you look at what they've done, now you talk about some of their best prospects still in the minors. That's true. We don't know for sure they're going to pan out in the majors.
Right.
Guys like, well, Espino's a pitcher, but there's still a lot of great talent
Gabriel
offensively.
Arias, Brian Rocchio.
The list goes on and on.
You got a ton of shortstops, some outfield guys.
Exactly. But even at the
Valero.
big league level, now guys got to prove it for more than 1 year. But Jimenez and Rosario have been in the big leagues, and they obviously were developed by the Mets. But the Guardians have gotten the best out of them. Right? Kwan had a magnificent rookie year. Gonzalez, a magnificent rookie year. On and on and on. A lot of these guys have really contributed now. And Bo Naylor's another one that we're hoping to see.
Yep.
He should be their starting catcher next year.
Probably will be. They've really moved. I mean, 16 rookies made their debuts this year. They've really moved away from manipulating contract clocks and all that and starting, like, they can't worry about that right now. They have to see who can play and who can't. There's something else I was going to say. It fell out of my head. Keep talking.
Bo Naylor, catcher. You know,
I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
When you were talking about hitting and everything,
Yeah.
they don't want to talk a lot about this. They don't want to reveal their secrets, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you look at the way, starting around the Bieber draft, they changed the way that they look at pitching. If they want command guys, and they feel like they can teach velocity. Where hitting, they feel if they can get contact guys, they can teach power. And Gonzalez is a good example of that. Oscar Gonzalez is a good example of that. When you see the way that they sort of redid his swing this year, and they've sort of taken out some of those holes. He still has massive power. It'll come in the future. I guess Kwan's a better example. This contact guys. Owen Miller came in trade, but a contact guy.
Yeah.
So they've really, within the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, they've sort of revamped the way that they scout these guys, both in trades and in the draft, where they don't necessarily want big power guys. They want guys who can put the bat on the ball, and they can teach them the rest. They can develop the rest.
You know, sometimes when you're in a smaller market, and I hate to say that, you have to do things differently, right? And if you think about all three teams, it'll be a little.
I almost wrote a column on this.
It'll be a little different than when Watson comes back. But all three of these teams have the arrow pointing way up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet they do it differently. The Guardians
all three of them play like they're in the 80s.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Guardians, where everybody's hitting for power, they're getting on base. The Browns, everybody's throwing the ball, they're running the ball.
Yep.
The Cavs, everybody's shooting threes, they're going with old school front
Three
line,
7-footers.
right?
Now this year they'll get away from that, I think, with the
Right.
Mitchell trade. But
the Browns and Cavs will come a little more modern, but the Guardians aren't.
No.
They're not.
And this may be,
And it's working.
I'm curious to see next year when they abolish the shift.
Yeah.
And how this they've been messing with the ball this year. It's pretty blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
They've been messing with the ball with humidors and everything else.
Yeah.
And the Guardians just seem like they're ahead of everybody else in this. And I'm wondering if other teams now will try and shift their philosophy and stop playing for 3-run homers and go back to the way Cleveland plays.
And I think the reason it's effective, and I'm hopeful the reason it'll be effective, and I know you said that you think the Guardians are going to be, have a team that can compete in the playoffs, and I do too, is because we're now in an era, guys, where there's so much velocity from the pitchers. Like, it used to be if a guy threw 98, it was like, oh my God, the guy threw 100. Oh my God. Now there's like a few guys on every team that throw that hard. Some teams have 7, 8 guys that throw in the high 90s. And with all that velocity, well, sometimes, especially facing the best pitchers in the playoffs, all those sluggers, they strike out a lot. The Guardians don't have a lot of guys that strike out. And if you put the ball in play and force the issue,
You're putting pressure on
That's
defenses
right.
constantly.
Yes.
Pitching staffs and defenses are under constant pressure when they play Cleveland.
So now that they're there, what's the ceiling in your mind? They're red hot. They've played well down the backstretch.
Yeah.
What is the ceiling now in the playoffs?
I have no expectations for this team. They're playing with house money, and it's sort of like LeBron's last year on that final year. I said, listen, I have no predictions. They could go out in the first round. They could go to the finals. Nothing would surprise me.
Right.
And they almost went out in the first round, and they did go to the finals. I kind of feel the same way about the Guardians. They may get there and get swallowed up in the moment and lose in the first round. They can go to the World Series. Neither one, I know it's not much of a prediction, but nothing that this team accomplishes or doesn't accomplish would surprise me at this point.
I agree. I think they could win 0 playoff games. I think they could win it all. Yeah, I really do.
It's so strange because they're so young.
Yes.
And we don't know what they can do in this moment.
Jason, you're so correct. When you playing with house money, they have no
pressure.
I don't know what's going on. Right?
Some teams get tight in the moment. Some teams are extremely loose.
We will know when the lights come on.
That's right. That's
When
right.
the lights come on, we will know.
I think it's very clear that in the American League, the Astros are the class.
Yes.
They're head and shoulders above everybody else. I think the Guardians are neck and neck with every other team in the American League. I believe
compete
that.
with anyone.
I know the Yankees have the big payroll and they're big, powerful Yankees. And Judge, I don't want anything to do with him individually. But the Guardians have a better rotation than the Yankees. They have a million times better bullpen than the Yankees. And I don't know that their lineups really, I mean, that's close. Yeah, Judge is great, but so is Jose Ramirez. Yeah. And the Guardians defensively are better. Yankees are solid defensively, but not as good as the Guardians. So, and you got to get past somebody else first. But I like their chances.
It really depends on, does Houston go 3 games in the first round? Who lines up? How do you line up your pitching in the second round?
Well, Houston's got 5 good starters. Really,
yeah, I know.
So that makes it tricky.
But if you can delay seeing Verlander, I'm all for that.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
I don't understand how he's still that good.
It's amazing.
It really is.
He was in Detroit.
He may be having the best year of his career. Yeah. He might win a Cy Young at 40. All right, or whatever he is. All right, guys, let's send it over to Anthony. He is producing today. Mike is a slacker and didn't want to work.
Everybody.
So we'll send
Mike's
it to
taking
Anthony.
a day off, sitting next to me today.
Well, Mike shows up late today. I don't know what's happening. I'm kidding.
We don't have to talk about it. He may have been out partying with the Guardians last night.
Oh, was
and
he?
Those guys are going hard. We all saw the videos. I'll be honest, the hangovers might be bad. When you have a hangover, though, your stomach, you wake up, it's empty, you're hungry. What do you want to go grab? A Built Bar. 120 calories. Don't laugh. You're going to make me laugh.
That's
120
good.
calories.
Yeah.
They're the best cure for the hangover. You can go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15, and get 15% off your code. And now,
there you go.
We're going to do Ask the Internet, too.
Okay, what are they saying here?
So we went out, and we asked them, once this stinger's done.
All right.
You drunk? What do you want to eat? Taco Bell?
Definitely.
Sheets?
Definitely.
Whenever we ask the Internet, they're brought to you by PCC.
Get it done.
Looking for a job with a career advancement and great benefits? PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. And all locations of PCC Airfoils located in Eastlake, Menor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up. Plus, get a full benefit package, paid time off, and signing bonus. Apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more.
Never go against the PCC. Never. Never go against it.
He's doing regular movie lines now.
All right, what does the Internet say?
All right,
Anthony?
so we can go ahead and take tag board here, Steve. And today we wanted to ask, how are we feeling about the Guardians winning the Central? So we can go to our first one here, Mike. We asked for gifts from Jim.
Let's go, Mike.
Partying it up.
That's good. I like that.
Partying it up. Remember to grab your Built Bar after you're done chugging that can.
Absolutely. You're going to feel
Next
better.
one,
Got a Pepsi?
Going unstoppable. Can't get through. Thanks, Ed.
Juggernaut.
Next one, Mike. The classic, Cleveland Rocks.
I mean, you got to always have Drew Carey.
Absolutely. I think we tweeted this out from the UCSS account, too.
Yeah.
Let's take the last one here, Mike. Going
Kermit?
crazy. Oh, do we have one more?
Is there any Kermit connection directly to Cleveland? Anything?
I don't know if there's any Kermit connection.
My kind of team, Charlie. That's
Love
a good
that
one.
movie.
My
from
kind of
Cleveland
team,
Sports Homer.
Charlie.
My kind of team, Charlie.
What happened to that guy? Was he ever in a movie besides Major League? That guy said such a
Lou
great
Brown?
voice.
See, the people mad about that, right? They mad about you got Major League.
Yeah.
It's a classic movie. They got the jerseys on that say Indians. They be mad. Some people right now just punishing themselves, going rewinding that on VHS.
Yeah.
I told you they should have never changed.
I wonder if all the people said, all those losers who said they're never watching again because they're the Guardians, are they back?
I think some of them are back and some of them still aren't.
All right, let's go to Tom Hamilton, the amazing voice of the Cleveland Guardians. There he is. Tom,
Yes,
were you partying last night? Were you partying with the team last night? What were you up all night? Were you drinking? What's going on?
No, I'm too old for that. And but it was fun to go down in the clubhouse and see those guys. I mean, at my age now, they're the same age as my kids, so you feel like you're watching your kids, so to speak, enjoy, and those are the guys that should enjoy it. Yeah, it's fun to just go down there, congratulate people, stay off on the side because they're the guys that played. They're the guys that won this thing. We were the lucky ones that were able to go along for the ride and then watch it day by day. But they had a good time. Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
It's very fortuitous that today was a scheduled off day.
It would have been an off day whether they were scheduled or not.
Right. So we heard. Hey, Tom, we mentioned a great stat before that I saw in Mandy Bell's article that the Guardians are the youngest team in baseball. That we knew, but they're the first team that was the youngest team in baseball to clinch to win a division since the '86 Mets. I mean, and that team obviously was great. What a remark! I mean, nobody had the Guardians winning the division this year. Nobody. It's crazy.
No, and I think that includes everybody within the organization.
Sure.
I mean, you go to spring training and everyone's hopeful. I mean, that's the beauty of spring training is that everyone feels good about their chances. But you also knew what was in store in that, you had to find out. Tito had always said, and he said it in spring training, look, you have to find out about young players. Sometimes the answer is no, but the worst thing you could do is go through a season and not get questions answered and be in the same boat next year. And so, this roster, guys, looks a whole lot different than it did when we opened up the season in Kansas City. Oscar Mercado is gone and Bradley Zimmer and Bobby Bradley and Yu Chang. And there have been others, but the young kids really pushed the envelope. I think what's remarkable is, we've talked about the age, 16 players making their major league debut. Mm-hmm. Now, that normally is a recipe for a ball club that's going to be 20 games under 500. Yep. I think the amazing part of the 16 making their debut is how many made an immediate impact, even guys that aren't here right now. Remember when Nolan Jones came up in Kansas City and, helped that ball club win a couple of games right away for the way that he was playing. And, you can kind of go on down the list. Guys came up here and were ready to play right away. I think a lot of credit not only goes obviously to the front office and scouting and player development, but the job manager, Andy Tracy, did in Columbus. Because when these kids came up here, and I'm sure Brad can relate to this even better than any of us. When you're a rookie, first off, you're to be seen and not heard. Absolutely. And these kids knew how to come into a clubhouse or into a locker room and pay their respects, so to speak. But the biggest thing they did is they proved to the veterans they weren't concerned about their stats. The only way you get to the major leagues is you put up numbers.
That's right.
But when you get to the major leagues, it's about winning games. And those guys proved to the veterans from day one, they would do whatever it would take to win a game, even if they were 0 for 4, but moved a runner up or made a great play defensively or had a 10-pitch at bat that enabled other guys to see what that pitcher had. Whatever they did to help the ball club rather than help themselves, that's how they were ingratiated so quickly into this ball club. And Chris Valleca had a great point earlier this summer when visiting with him that he calls it the power of the high five. And I know it sounds so simplistic and it almost sounds like something you would tell your high school kids if you were a coach. But he said they talked about the power of the high five, that when you came to the dugout, you were getting a high five for something you did to help the ball club. Again, you might have made an out, but you had a long at bat or you moved a runner or whatever. And just those little things, it really seemed to just kind of snowball everybody bought in, and that's a credit, obviously, to Tito and the coaching staff, but to Andy Tracy and how he prepared those kids in Columbus, and then the kids themselves, because we've all been around young people, and I include myself in that. When I was young, we think we know it all, and that's how you get in trouble when you get brought up to a major league club. And man, these kids they got it from day one. They really got it. Tom,
when you in terms of saying when they had it, when did you get it? When did you first have an inkling? Hey, this team can make some moves. They might be okay here. What was that epiphany when it hit you? Like, this Guardians team has some potential for a postseason.
It's a great question, and I feel kind of like Tito sometimes when you say you haven't had time to really reflect and kind of go back at certain points. But I think to your question, that whatever the date was, I think it was May 8th, May 9th it might have been, when Josh Naylor had 8 RBIs from the 8th inning on, and you won a ball game in Chicago against the prohibitive favorites to win the division, and you tied it up against one of the great closers in the game, Liam Hendricks, when Josh Naylor had a grand slam in the 9th inning, and then he won it in the 11th inning with a 3-run home run. Now, I think in a baseball season, unlike a football season, you can't necessarily point to a game because, as Tito always says, it's so fluid. You can win that game and you lose the next 3 and nobody remembers the great comeback. But I think that instilled a belief that we're never out of a ball game. That's how those kids looked at it. They never felt like they were out of a ball game. And it was almost like the 7th inning on belonged to Cleveland. Now, part of that was due to the fact they had a great bullpen. And I think that's when you started to see how good the bullpen was, in that it wasn't just Emmanuel Clase, but you had guys that could get the ball to Clase. When you had a chance to win games late, or at least not lose games late, and then these kids seem to find ways to get big hits or do something late in the game. But to me, that's when it kind of maybe opened up my eyes that, like, hey, this ball club might be a little better than what we think. But there were various points during the season where you thought it was going the other way. I mean, we lost 5 games in a row, and on September 4th, the ball club was in a first-place tie with Minnesota, 2 games ahead of Chicago, and literally you clinched it 3 weeks later. I mean, it's astounding to go from tied for first to going 18-3 and winning a division, but you did it because you punched out the guys you were in competition with, Chicago and Minnesota.
Hey, Tommy, you said something very, very profound here shortly ago. You've been in the business a long time. You know this, right? So you got these young players here who have no idea what's going on. They're just enjoying the moment, soaking it in, right? Who is the person that's going to keep them from knowing that the bright lights are about to hit? Because you know how stage fright gets to young players sometimes, like when you wake up and realize that, oh, Lord, I'm actually here at the party, right? Who's going to do that here? Is that going to be Tito?
I think it starts with Tito and the coaching staff. Yeah. And you've got Sandy Alomar and that coaching staff, who's as important to this franchise as anybody we've ever had. I mean, you think of it, the franchise turned when Hank Peters made the trade for trading Joe Carter to San Diego after the '89 season and getting Sandy Alomar and Carlos Baerga and Chris James in that trade. Sandy Alomar then was the Rookie of the Year in 1990. And it just seems like, that was my first year, was Sandy's first year. That's 33 years that Sandy's been here. Think of the winning that has come with Sandy Alomar being a part of this as a player and a coach. I think he's one of the most integral, important pieces in the history of this franchise. And Sandy's always wanted to stay here and has turned down other jobs to stay here because he said winning it all here would mean more to him. So I think you lean on guys like a Sandy Alomar, obviously, Tito. But then, Brad, I think the other thing, Austin Hedges is one of those veterans that has been around that, he's very extroverted, he's very loud, and guys listen. And, but I also think this whole group right now is kind of like, you know what? No one believes in us except us, and we've been believing in ourselves since spring training. So it's the old adage, and I don't know who could figure it out. What comes first, chemistry or winning? Does winning beget chemistry, or do you need good chemistry to ever be a winner? If you could figure that out, you could make a lot of money. But the chemistry on this club is the best that I've ever seen. And we've had some great teams here and close-knit groups, but this is unheard of to be this close-knit. Maybe it helped too, guys. I'm just rambling now, but so many of these kids played together for a long time in the minor leagues. I think there's something to be said about losing and then winning together. They've been through it all in the minor leagues and now the major leagues, and so it's special. And I think we all know that the future's really bright, but you really better soak in the moment now, because there are no promises for what will happen in the next 3-4 years. I think Adam mentioned, or someone mentioned, the 1986 Mets.
Yeah.
They should have won how many World Series? That's the only one they won.
Right.
And it may have taken an act of God for them to win that one. Mm-hmm. And if you've seen, the series ESPN did on those Mets, and you understand why maybe they only won it one time.
Had some things going on, Tommy. Had some things going on.
I'd say so.
Some little things.
Tom, you mentioned Chris Valaika earlier, and I'm wondering how he's changed the approach of some of these guys, if he did, because we were talking before you came on. There was like an organizational shift, it feels like, a couple years ago in the way that they draft and develop their hitters. It seems like the emphasis is on contact more now, and guys who can put the bat on the ball. I know it's a perfect storm and everybody deserves some of the credit, but how did this come about where you have so many guys in the lineup? There's not a ton of power there. You do have a new hitting coach in here now. How have his philosophies sort of blended in with this contact-first approach of not sort of waiting on 3-run homers like everybody else in baseball seems to do?
Yeah, Jason, I think he's got a lot to do with it. I also think Alex Eckelman, who's in our front office, and most people don't even know who Alex is, probably from the outside, but he's kind of been the guy that implemented a plan. And to your point, I think the ball club understood that we need to get better hitting. They had made their bones on the kind of pitching that they were able to go out, scout, sign, develop. But we hadn't done that as far as hitters. And so, that's the thing about Chris and Cherney, Mike Chernoff. Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff I think they're the best front office in the game.
Totally agree.
And look, they have some challenges here from a revenue standpoint, because we're the market that we're in, and we're going to draw 1.3 million people this year. Yeah. So those are facts, whether anybody likes it or not. That's the reality of the situation. But this organization, and again, I think it goes back to ownership too. They don't talk about what they don't have. They talk about, okay, how do we get around those challenges and still compete and not use that as an excuse? And so they've been on the cutting edge of technology, but they also still believe in baseball people. So I think you have to have the combination of the two. But yeah, I think Chris Valaika has been mammoth in this, in that it's not, this is my way of doing it and everybody's got to be the same. Every hitter's a little bit different, and I think you'll see his impact here for a long time to come. And again, I think Alex Eckelman gets a lot of credit with that too. It's interesting when you talk to our young players how they want this information, and a lot of them had it in college already, because analytics has now gone into the college arena of baseball. So these kids come to pro ball and they want to know what you as an organization have that will help them get better. They do their research too.
Tom, you mentioned Chris and Cherney. I made the point to Bull earlier. I think Cleveland got Al Avila and Dayton Moore both fired because their owners looked and said, why can't you do what they're doing over there? I honestly do. I think they got them fired. Am I crazy, or do you think that played a role in it?
No, you're not crazy. Now, I think Al was on his way out anyway because of how things were going in Detroit. Dayton still shocks me. And, I'm flabbergasted yet by that one, but again, I'm not there, so it isn't right for me to comment on it other than to say I was stunned, like I think most people were. But I think, to your point, Jason, you're right. I think people have now looked at Cleveland and said, wait a minute, they have a payroll of whatever it is, $75 million. And not most of it, but a huge chunk of that is, Jose Ramirez. Mm-hmm. And so people don't want to hear, here's, guys, my biggest bone of contention. And it happened when Jacobs Field opened up. Cleveland had a 5-year plan under Hank Peters, John Hart, Danny O'Dowd. And it happened to be the perfect storm because those players kind of all blossomed at the same time Jacobs Field opened. So a lot of ball clubs sold their city on, hey, if you build us a new ballpark, we'll do what the Indians did. Well, it's not that easy. Right. And so when I hear teams now say, well, we've got this 5-year plan, it's kind of like you're telling your fan base, you know what, folks, we're irrelevant, come back to us in 5 years. Cleveland didn't think they could afford to do that. They just felt like we do that, we'll lose a whole generation of baseball fans if we are willing to go and lose 100 games a year. And that's what Dayton Moore tried to not do in Kansas City. He tried to make that rebuild quicker than the normal tear it down to the studs and then build it up in 5 to 7 years. And it hasn't worked yet in Kansas City. I think what's remarkable here in Cleveland, our worst year in the 10 years Tito has been here was last year, and that club was 80-82. And that's without Bieber, Plesac, and Savali, all of them missing half the year due to injuries. So they have never said we're going to rebuild it, tear it down to the studs. This has been a transitional phase. It's obviously worked to this point. Now, again, next year you could have a plethora of injuries and suddenly everyone's like, well, they should have been better than what they were a year ago. That's why, to me, they better really enjoy this run right now because, there's nothing predictable in this game. But I do think, to your point, we're going to see a lot of organizations. There'll be a copycat situation here like there is in all sports. This is what's working right now in Cleveland. Why can't we do it?
Yeah, and I'm worried that John Sherman's going to come to Cleveland to find his next GM. He's obviously very familiar with these guys. He's taken somebody from this front office to be the next GM at Kansas City.
They keep taking people from this front office. Everybody does.
Yeah, but Kansas City, I think, is really going to pillage Cleveland.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because of his familiarity.
It's all right. Hey, Tom, what's amazing, you look at, a few months ago you would have said, well, the Guardians might make the playoffs, but can they compete? It seemed like they were far behind the other teams. Now, clearly, Houston's the best team in the American League. I don't think anybody's debating that. They've got a great roster top to bottom. But as you know better than anybody, once the playoffs start, more than any other sport, it's a crapshoot. We were just saying before, Guardians could get swept in the first round, wouldn't shock me. They could go to the World Series and win it all. That wouldn't shock me either. I think, especially in the first round, Mariners, Blue Jays, Rays, maybe even the Orioles, but probably one of those three teams, I think they stack up actually very well because the Guardians are good in all 4 areas, right? Good lineup, great defense, great bullpen, good starting rotation. While those other teams have some strengths, like Toronto's lineup's great, but their pitching's, okay. And Mariners, their lineup's a mess. Julio Rodriguez is out. Eugenio Suarez is out. Their pitching's great. But I think the Guardians, compared to all these teams except for maybe Houston, are very competitive. Very competitive.
Yeah, I agree, Adam. And I think every year when we get to the playoffs, it feels like we say this, that, crazy things happen in October.
That's right.
And, I'm looking at your graphic there, and we have no idea how this thing is going to shake out. Now, obviously, we'll see Tampa Bay for 3 games starting tomorrow night. I was kidding Tito yesterday in his office before the game when we were doing our taping of the manager show, and you know how that is. You want to talk about it, yet it's not official yet,
right?
And so you're kind of dancing around that. And I kiddingly said, "Well, Tito, have you looked at the matchup yet?" And he laughed and he goes, "Oh yeah, we've already started that because even though it wasn't official, they've got to start planning."
Sure.
And he goes, the longer you looked at those 3 teams, the more you said, I don't think it matters who we play, because you said you can drive yourself crazy looking at various matchups as who do you match up best against. And as we have seen here luckily now, we have had 13 postseasons here in Cleveland since 1995. That's 13 in 28 seasons. So that's almost every other year you're in the postseason. And October of 2016, I didn't think we'd get out of the first round with the injuries
Totally
to Salazar and Carrasco, and what everyone forgets, no Michael Brantley, who was our best player, best leader, and one of the best people that this game's ever produced. And we never had Michael Brantley that whole October.
Amazing.
And then, Bauer, I'll just say that and not add any engine, decided to go play with his drone after a dominant first game against Boston and was useless from that point on in October, and they get to Game 7. So I'm with you. Nothing would surprise me with this group. Now, being the father of 4, as you guys know, you're always worried when you have kids. Doesn't matter what age they are, no matter what they're doing, how successful they are, you always have something to worry about. So now I worry about the fact we're not going to play a consequential game for a week and a half. And how do you come out of this? Is it best to keep having to win to get into the playoffs and have that momentum that we currently have? Or is it better to be rested now and get your rotation in order for the way you want it? Again, no one's been able to figure that out. But I think Brad mentioned it before. You wonder now they're going to have this basically a week and a half here where they're going to be sitting around going, wow, we're in the playoffs. We got the playoffs coming up, in less than 2 weeks. So, you know what, though? What the heck? It sure beats the alternative of saying, I've got a tea time for October 5th. What do you guys?
Well, Tom, and I'm going to just jump on the tail end because Bull's got something for you. But here's the thing, right? Time is a problem. Free time is a problem. Because when you're on the grind every day as a player, you just go in there and do your thing. So to me, it would be apparent to me that Tito's going to keep his foot on the pedal and keep him driving. Because I let a young person sit down there and actually realize what is happening right now. I just tell you, you can scare yourself because you're like, oh, wait, hold on now. And I'll just make it, not that we're going into Yankee Stadium, but if you walked into Yankee Stadium when the playoff, the atmosphere is different.
That's true.
It's different. You can scare yourself here, right? And say, hold on, I'm really here. So Tito is the guy, and the great point you made that Sandy's around, and that we've got other people in the clubhouse that understand what this is about. I just hope that Tito keeps his foot on the gas here, and as we walk out the regular season, walk us into the playoffs correctly.
Yeah, and he will, Brad. They're going to give guys rest and whatnot, but no matter what, even with the young guys that'll be filling in here and there, you're going to hear Tito say the same thing. There's only one way to play this game, and you've got to play it the right way. And the other part, too, here, now I'm going to go to the other side of the coin. So this is why I'm so wishy-washy. Guys, our 26-man roster is yet to be determined.
That's true.
So there are still jobs to be won or jobs to be lost as to who's going to be on that 26-man playoff roster. Right now we have a 28-man roster because of the additional 2 players come September. And what's going to be the makeup of this ball club? If we'd have done this show a month ago, I'm sure you would have asked me who's Will Brennan.
Right.
There's a chance Will Brennan on that Friday night here in let me take it back.
Yeah.
ESPN's doing the games. We're in them. So I would say we'll probably play Friday morning at 8:30. So they don't. But if it's Cleveland and Tampa in the division or the Wildcard series, it may not be televised. We may have a radio exclusive.
We'll be listening to you anyway, Tom.
Tom, you mentioned that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about was Will Brennan. Is he on this postseason roster? I think there's a place for him now.
Yeah.
And Sam Hentges. I could ask you about every player, but those two in particular. Is Hentges the new Andrew Miller 2.0 from 2016? And does Will Brennan have a place on this postseason roster?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jason. One, Will Brennan will be on this postseason roster. I think you'll see him start. Now, again, it depends on the matchup, maybe who's pitching. Are you facing whomever and they've got a left-hander on the mound? That could change it in regards to Will Brennan. But I think, yes, I do think he'll be on the playoff roster. I'd be stunned if he isn't, but, we'll see. Sam Hentges, boy, when you compare anybody to Andrew Miller,
I know it's a high bar, especially
that
that
was a little much.
But
yeah.
he's got that starter's background. You know, he can go. He could throw you. He could give you 30, 35 pitches if he
But
had
they don't
to.
need him to do that role, Tom, right? Because you got Karen Check.
You do have a great bullpen, but I look at him and I see Andrew Miller, like the same tall, lanky build and everything, and he's having a great year.
I tell you what, he's got the kind of stuff that Andrew. Now, no one had Andrew Miller's slider because Andrew could throw that at your back foot, or he could also pound you, around the outside corner or in on you. So, but to your point, he's similar in that he can go multiple innings. And I think the one thing we've learned from Tito is that he's not afraid to think outside the box come the postseason.
That's right.
You got to win that game that day. You worry about tomorrow.
Yeah, that's it.
When you're in the postseason, it's unlike the regular season where, and I hate to use I'm not comparing it to war, but the old analogy, in a long baseball season, sometimes you lose the battle to hopefully win the war. And you don't play certain guys or use certain guys because, you may win today, but that may impact you the next 4 days because you used that guy. In the first round of the playoffs, now there's no day off. So you've got to keep that in mind. You'd be talking about a guy potentially working 3 days in a row.
3 straight days.
But the one thing with Tito, he won't hesitate to go to guys early.
Okay.
That's what he did with Miller, Shaw, and Allen in 2016, and that's why they got as close as they did.
Yeah. What's amazing is the Guardians will have 9 straight home games, and then that first round is all at home. So the soonest the Guardians might play a road game is 2 weeks from tomorrow, which would be game 1 of the ALCS or ALDS against the Yankees, right?
Right.
So, or most likely the Yankees. But here's the thing, Tom. In terms of rest, I think it's important for Clase and Karinchak in particular. Like, you don't want to put them in ice for a week and a half.
Right.
But I think those two guys in particular, this rest will be helpful down the stretch, especially Clase. Don't you think?
I completely agree, Adam. And I think the beauty for us in winning the division title, we have nothing else now that will get us home field advantage. We can't win enough games to become number 2 seed.
Right.
So whatever our record ends up being, that's our record. We're still going to be the home team.
Yep.
And if we get beyond the wild card series, we're still going on the road to start it. And, we'll be going to New York. And look, first you got to get there. But I'd rather be going to New York than Houston. I know we talked about it. Houston,
no doubt.
In my mind, we don't see the Dodgers enough, but I'd be hard-pressed to believe that they're as good as Houston, even though their record is off the charts. Houston's a machine, and I don't know. Well, of course, I think the world of Dave Roberts, too, because he played here, and he's just a great guy. But Dusty Baker is just – he's one of those people that if you don't love Dusty Baker, look in the mirror because that's where the problem is. And he just knows how to win. So I just, hey, look, it's supposed to be hard when you get to this point.
Right.
I think that's the beauty of our game. I don't feel like we've watered down the playoffs, even with the additional wild card teams. There's still not even half the ball clubs in postseason play, and so we've said it before. It truly is. It's as close to March Madness, I think, as we have in pro sports, because nobody has a one and done. But the unpredictability, I think, in Major League Baseball, maybe the National Hockey League playoffs, if you get a hot goalie, I think the Super Bowl and the NBA Finals, you pretty much know who are going to be the final 3 or 4 teams, it seems like, every year. But I think in baseball and hockey, man, good luck. I wouldn't want to be a gambling man.
Tom, real quick, I've already – this won't matter for the wild card round, but I've already advanced them to the divisional round. So who's their 4th starter?
No 3 days rest. I don't want to see them do that, I hope.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Zach Plesac will pitch this week. So he's going to be back in the rotation. And Aaron Savali has had 2 pretty good starts, including yesterday in Texas, in the clincher. So I don't know. to answer your question. I think it depends on how those guys pitch. I really do. I think you can use both guys out of the bullpen. And, and I wonder in the first round, because you can change the makeup of your roster in each round if you keep advancing. Are you going to be more inclined to carry more relief pitchers than even put starters in the bullpen because they haven't done that role before?
Right.
But yet you're playing. So here's a thing. Say you're in a situation where, you win game 1 and you're getting pounded in game 2. Well, you know what you're going to do? You're going to want a guy that can just soak. As dumb as that sounds, you're not going to want to go through all your key guys. You're going to want to have them for game 3 so you're fully loaded. Now maybe do you need to carry somebody and give you length in a potential ball game that you go, okay, we're not chasing this one today because there's no chance of winning. That's why the next 10 days there are going to be a lot of meetings.
Yeah. By the way, Tom, as we wrap up here, I tell you, I do this a lot, especially down the stretch of this season. I know a lot of fans do this, and I will 100% be doing this in the playoffs. I sit there like a crazy person trying to sync up the radio broadcast with the TV. I honestly have done this, and I'm like, pause on the TV. I'm like, it's got to be perfect, and I 100% will be doing that in the playoffs because there's nothing better than hearing you call the games.
Wow,
thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tommy.
It's always great to be with you guys, and I'll just throw this in real quick. Brad wouldn't realize this. So I did college basketball for 25 years, the Big Ten and Xavier. But Brad broke my heart growing up in Wisconsin when he transferred from Wisconsin to Ohio State.
Tommy, it wasn't me. They didn't understand where we were going. I was committed to Madison, and then they flipped the script on me. I was like, I can't stay here. Plus, you have to blame the guys at Ohio State. They're like, man, just come on home. Just come on home. Stop fooling around in Queensland. Come on home.
We finally have a star. We get one of the top players out of Ohio. And I think, we had you for 2 years, Brad?
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years.
And then one of my partners for maybe 8 years in the Big Ten was Coach Yoder. And just saw a whole different side of him than I did as a kid growing up, watching the Badgers struggle. And when you left, of course, you go to Ohio State, and there it is again, double-double. And, we didn't have that in Wisconsin.
Tommy,
you broke his heart.
I was like, Brad. Tommy, I was like, listen, my best friends are still in Madison. I'm like, this is crazy. But I was like, okay, I guess I got to go home.
Thank you, Tom. You're the best. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Hamilton. I mean,
I
there's just nobody better. There's nobody better. All right, we switch gears. We've spent an hour and 2 minutes, longest stretch ever, talking baseball. I love it. We're going to switch gears and get to the Browns. Obviously, they played Thursday night football. They did not play this weekend, but we always want to know. We bring up Pro Football Focus. We talk about the grades. We were saying it didn't look like Myles Garrett did anything, and yet PFF has a good grade for him. Helping us break it down. I know he's on with G all the time in the barbershop. John Costco from Pro Football Focus. John, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing excellent. We're happy to have you with us, and let's start with that. Myles Garrett, right? Like when there's not as many tradition, like with pass rushers, the only traditional stat is sack, but obviously that doesn't tell the whole story. He's getting double teamed, triple teamed. He didn't appear to be making a lot of impact, but the grade on him was pretty good. Give us a little breakdown of Myles Garrett and why he had a good grade, even though it didn't seem to the casual observer that he had a good game.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that obviously a sack is like 1% of the plays of a single season for a guy. So we look at every single play and we're grading the guy in every single play. So we take into consideration, is he getting double teamed, even triple teamed on plays, and what type of impact that makes. And then even in those situations, he can get pressure on the quarterback, but if the quarterback gets rid of the ball in 2 seconds, sometimes a sack doesn't happen. He had 3 pressures in the game. It wasn't like a super high game for him, but he did win 4 of the times where the quarterback got rid of it in, say, under 2 seconds, where it's really difficult to get pressure, especially from the edge in that situation. And so he won on his reps, 20% of his pass rushes. But the thing is that when Mitch Trubisky is actually throwing the ball in a quick manner, a lot of times, because the Brown secondary hasn't been playing actually all that great this year, it's difficult for him to get this consistent pressure that way. So, and he doesn't have any help right now on that defensive line. When Jadeveon Clowney's not out there, he's getting triple teamed almost half the plays.
Okay, now do Denzel Ward. He was singled up with Deontay the other night. Did not look like Denzel's played well the last couple of weeks. And I honestly haven't seen the numbers. I'm truly asking. I haven't seen what you guys have done with him. How has Denzel been both against the Steelers in the last 2 weeks?
I took a lot of flack on Twitter for his game against the Jets for giving up over 100 yards. He came out and called me out and said, "No, I only was targeted once."
I did see that.
A lot of cornerbacks think that, I was only in man coverage on a receiver once and was targeted, and that's it. And they don't think about situations like I was in the flat and they threw to the flat, so that's technically a target into his coverage. So he gave up, in our opinion, the big touchdown run to Corey Davis in that game. There was a busted coverage. It was cover 3 in our opinion there. And basically everybody else on the defense was playing cover 3 except for him. So he might think that he was in cloud 2, and that's probably what he thought he was, but he still let Corey Davis just run right by him. He has not been good so far this year. Even against Deontay Johnson, he struggled a lot in those comeback routes. He got injured this summer with that foot injury, and I think that's that kind of really showed in this game because he struggled to cover him. He had a couple of nice plays on the ball, but he was generally getting beat pretty soundly from Deontay Johnson, which he's one of the best route runners in the NFL, but usually Ward is better than that.
John, we talked about this a little bit. I came out and I've been watching Jedrick Wills, and in my mind, I didn't already moved him to guard. Like I don't think he's a starting left tackle. He's a top 10 pick, but I mean, when you look at him in the film, it just sometimes he leaves a lot to be desired. He's kind of a waist bender instead of a knee bender. What do the numbers bear out in terms of what Jedrick Wills has been over his career with the Browns?
He's basically been below average to replacement level left tackle for the Browns. So when he's healthy, he's been decent the first 2 years, but you can have an excuse in the first 2 years of him moving from right tackle to left tackle, and that's a tough transition. But the problem I have with him is that he doesn't really finish plays, and he gives up on plays way too quickly. And it kind of shows when he's trying to cut off on the backside of outside zones. He might be pass protecting, and he goes, "I have a 3-second clock, and that ball should have been out in 3 seconds. I'm done." And he gets beat because of those types of situations. So I don't even know if moving him to guard would help in that situation, because you need to be a physically tough person to play inside. And he doesn't play with that physical toughness. He will have a play or two on tape in each game where he will finish a player, and it looks really impressive, but he doesn't do it on a consistent enough basis. He just gets beat too often in a run game. He's pretty okay in pass protection, but the run game is where he really struggles, where he gets beat really quickly and then turns around and goes, "Hey, what happened?" So, he's grading right now in the mid-50s, which is it's a liability. It's a liability.
So, John, before I get to my question, I see your Jayhawk fanatic sign behind you, so I'm sure that you're kind of ecstatic about what's going on there in Jayhawk country down there. I don't even know what's really happening down there. I like y'all really.
Jalen Daniels is what's happening down there.
Who even knew they played football?
He's an absolute stud.
I didn't even know that.
But I watched him this weekend. I'll give you that. I watched him this weekend. I said, okay, let me put an eye on this. Here's my thing. When you look at the Browns, John, I think the receiving core needs some shoring up here, right? And now, we got our top pick, David Bell from Purdue, right? I think what's your grading on the receivers beside Amari Cooper? Amari Cooper's been playing great, and Njoku's played well the last couple games. But what do you think about the rest of the receiving core here?
It's not good enough. They're grading in the 50s and 60s, and it's tough because they're not getting as many targets. But when you don't get targets, you don't get graded very well, because it's kind of assumed when you're not getting targets, you're not getting open, and you're not earning the targets. Amari Cooper's playing obviously really well right now. Donovan Peoples-Jones had a really good week 1 game, but hasn't shown up at all since then. Part of that is scheme wise, and they maybe made an emphasis to get to Amari Cooper the ball, and obviously David Njoku in this last game. But they're just not good enough. And I think we knew that coming into the season. I think a lot of people get hopes on Donovan Peoples-Jones because he does make some really nice contested catches, but he's not a good separator. In my opinion, he has pretty stiff hips and he can't really get in and out of his breaks real well. So he's a guy that when you throw him the ball, and if he's got a really large catch radius and is really good at those contested catches, but I mean, you can't live on contested catches if you can't get open on a consistent basis. And Amari Cooper can do that. These other guys don't do that. And even with Anthony Schwartz, he's a guy that is really stiff hips. We know he has straight line speed, but they I don't know if they utilize him in the proper way, because I wouldn't be using him on those reverses, because you have to cut it upfield at some point, and he doesn't have the ability to do that on a clean and consistent basis. So they really miss Jakeem Grant when, obviously him getting hurt. I think he would have been more utilized in that role.
It's going to be interesting to see if that, you don't usually see a lot of big trades, but it'll be interesting, John, if the Browns, once we get to the trade deadline, if it looks like Brissett's going to be able to keep them in the hunt until Watson comes back, if they aggressively go after a second wide receiver. I mean, we've talked about free agents like Will Fuller, who is still out there, although he's got the history of Watson, obviously, but he's had a ton of injuries. But you look at some of the bad teams in the NFL, like maybe Brandon Cooks in Houston. I know he signed an extension. Are there some guys on bad teams that you've got your eye on that maybe the Browns could trade for at some point?
It's always I hate speculating on that type of stuff, because especially this early in the season, every team still has hope that they're going to make into the playoffs, right? Yeah. So I think with the Browns, they don't seem to be all that concerned with their wide receiver group. They obviously have Kareem Hunt, who they utilize in the passing game pretty well. And especially this year, they're finally utilizing him out in the slot and more out wide with Nick Chubb on the field, which has been a positive, sign there. I think they are starting to give up on Demetric Felton. He's been that punt returner, and I think he was an active scratch this past weekend. And I think, the Browns do need more receiver help, but I think if David Njoku kind of emerges as this number 2 weapon for them, I mean, it's kind of like what Kansas City would have had in not at that level. I'm not going to even compare it to the level that Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill were for Patrick Mahomes. But, I mean, you can win a lot of football games with a tandem of a wide receiver and a tight end that are excellent. And Njoku, as the graphic shows there, had an excellent game. You don't even need the numbers to know that he had an excellent game in that one. Even with Amari Cooper's 2 drops in that game, he was still very effective. And I think it's can be good enough, that especially with the Browns running game. And it's with the way Jacoby Brissett has been playing, he's grading as a top 3 quarterback this year, which is kind of more an indictment on how bad the quarterbacks have been so far this year.
But we know that's not
really
last.
Inconsistent play.
We know that's not going to last. Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I think he's playing about as well as you can hope for.
Yes.
And if he can maintain that for 11 games, it gets you into position when Deshaun Watson comes back that he's going to he's going to have them in a position to make the playoff run. So I think, Brissett has been accurate, which is interesting. I was looking at this earlier today. He's been inaccurate on only 17% of his throws over the past 3 years, which is a top 6 level in the NFL. And the difference, though, is Deshaun Watson's actually 3rd best in that category. The difference, though, is that when he gets it to his target, it's not like a perfectly accurate ball. It's outside the frame that makes the receiver work for it. Whereas Deshaun Watson's at a top 5 level of always putting it on the frame. So if you want to talk about Kevin Stefanski scheming up open receivers, and then also Jacoby Brissett has just been playing really well, I think you're just going to see this offense go to another level if Deshaun Watson can pick up where he's left off, obviously from 2020.
John, I want to ask you about Anthony Walker, but first, when you talk about grading these guys and deeming an inaccurate pass, I'm just curious how you determine that. How far off does it have to be for it to be considered inaccurate?
Not catchable. So, there's levels of that. So we have a lot of different categories where you'd say, hey, he puts it on his frame. He's leading him with perfect accuracy. Maybe he put it over his helmet, but it's in a catchable spot where you'd expect maybe the receiver to have to work a little bit more for it. Below the waist, you talk about is catchable, but it's low, so it's not a perfectly accurate ball. But essentially, if you're missing throws, it's inaccurate. I think I think for the most part, you can look at a quarterback and say, well, he missed that throw. There are some situations where it's like, hey, the receiver ran the wrong route and there's a miscommunication on it, and you're not sure. But that's like 1% to 2% of the throws that are out there that you're just not really sure on.
So as far as Walker goes, obviously it's a devastating injury for that defense. He's one of the leaders of that defense. How have the rest of the linebackers graded out, and who do you think emerges, or who covers that hole now?
Well, I think Jacob Phillips is going to come in there. He had a really good game in place of Walker, coming in there. But the difference, though, between Walker and Phillips is that I think, Walker was actually playing well. I don't think he's not like a great linebacker by any means, but he's a good linebacker. He's a serviceable linebacker. And he was grading at a top 10 level so far this year, albeit on a small sample size. Last year, he was in the middle of the pack of linebackers, and that's where I kind of expect him to be. Jacob Phillips, on the other hand, in his time with the Browns in the NFL, has been a bottom quarter of the league linebacker, and that's on a small sample size. He really hasn't shown very well. I think we all know what Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah can do. He's one of the best linebackers already in the NFL, and he showed that so far this year. And I think he needs to step up his game even more without Walker, because I still don't trust Phillips, even though he's an athletic guy and he can run around, but he's not the leader that you need for that defense, especially with all the busted coverages that they've had and the miscues in zone coverages. So it's a loss for sure from a leadership standpoint and a standpoint of he was the communicator out there. Even if the communication wasn't great so far this year, I can't imagine what it's going to be like now.
John, there's two, I guess, glaring positions for me. One is the defensive tackle room, and I've been talking about this for, I don't know, probably 6 months. I know they like Jordan Elliott. I know they got Brian, but I just watched the tape, and they were getting, especially Taven Bryan, I mean, he was getting destroyed up front. And then the position group that I thought was going to be really a strength of this team in terms of John Johnson III and Grant Delpit, I have not seen, I just haven't seen the flashes from those two guys at a high enough level where the defense needs to go if they want to be elite.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that defensive tackle is an issue. There was an issue last year where they just continually got pushed around, especially if teams want to just run it down their throats, they can. And they made obviously some changes there, but they don't prioritize the position, and I think that's pretty clear. And I think a lot of people have hope that that maybe they'll sign in Ndamukong Suh at some point. I just don't see them doing it because they just don't prioritize the position. We just haven't seen them even have an ounce of interest in doing so. I think they want them to be serviceable enough, but they just aren't. They grade as a bottom 5 unit in the NFL, if not the worst. So they have issues here. The secondary, I think, is going to be fine. When you talk about what's happened in the first 3 weeks of the season, it's a lot of busted coverages, which it tanks a grade pretty badly, and obviously looks really bad. I think miscommunications and busts happen a lot more often than people realize in the NFL. And it's not good quarterbacks are not even good quarterbacks, but quarterbacks will take advantage of it. And the Browns have just had them at inopportune times. So I think they're going to be fine. I'm not a believer in Grant Delpit. I've never have been. He's a guy that does kind of play out of place quite often. Even did it in LSU. He got away with it because he was a good enough athlete there. But you can't do that at the NFL level. You're not Troy Polamalu who can anticipate and play at a high level, with even being out of position. So they need to be just more sound on the back end. I think John Johnson's been actually okay this year, but he's not the vocal leader that the team needs on that back end, which I kind of thought he would have been this year. Or I mean, when they signed him to even last year and this year, but he's not. So he's more of like a media in the locker room type guy, but on the field he's not a great communicator. It doesn't seem like, and that's kind of where some of these busts happen. Is the lack of communication in that back end.
John, good stuff. Your picture they just showed there looked like you were being arrested there. I mean, or maybe.
Yeah, that was a picture I took last November So there's like, mustache November or November month. So
that looks like someone driving home from the January 6th event. But
Hey,
What are you doing?
sorry.
What is wrong with you?
Goodness.
I'm making a joke.
actually,
If we can't laugh at the depressing
listen,
things in the country, what do we got?
People have made fun of that picture before, and they'll make fun of whatever. So I laugh with it.
Hey man, own it. You look
doesn't offend me
terrifying
one
in
bit.
it.
You
wouldn't mess
look
with it.
dangerous.
I wouldn't mess with it.
Good.
Hey, John.
Don't listen to this idiot.
John, just FYI, you watch out for Adrian Martinez, okay?
All right. Well, I'm not too scared about Kansas State. They lost to Tulane, but then they did beat.
That's the Sooners said
Oklahoma,
Saturday.
so.
Let's be honest, all these games are irrelevant anyway because Kansas is not playing for a national title. So no offense.
No, but they're going to be playing for a bowl game this year, and that's a huge
That's a
deal.
huge step up for
You
them.
want to call his kids ugly next? Like, you told him he should have looked like he's coming over from January 6th. Hey, you told him his college team has no hope. John, don't ever come back. Don't ever come back.
Thanks, John. We appreciate it.
My pleasure,
All right,
guys.
We'll see you later.
Thank you.
All right,
You are on tilt today.
I mean, I'm just out of
Hey,
control.
by the way,
Yeah.
hey, you don't know, man. I've known John for about 3 years. This guy, he could be on one of them. He's one of them survivalists.
See?
He's one of listen. They got drills and everything. Like Saturday morning,
He could use a
get
spoon
up.
to cut out both and show it to him. After
Yeah, he would definitely hunt him down.
I could use it.
with night vision
If
goggles.
there's a zombie apocalypse, we want John with us, right?
He got all the canned goods.
All right, Anthony, good bet, bad bet. Let's get it going.
Yeah, so our standings did not change at all this weekend.
What?
We're going to have Bull. We're going to look your card over right after
Look
we
my
remind
card.
everybody of where everybody's standing.
Yeah, look at
Okay,
me.
where's everybody standing?
Oh, look at me.
I'm under 500.
Look at me.
I always get off to a slow start before I eventually dominate and win.
Look at me.
Look
at me.
Okay, I see you, Brad.
Look at me. Yeah, look
Brad
at me.
actually.
By the way, your fantasy.
Yeah, don't sleep.
They laughed you all the way underneath the table.
Yeah, look at me.
Now look at you. Huh?
I did a big night
He's
from
gonna lose, I
Saquon.
think, this week.
I did a big night from Saquon tonight.
But Brad's doing better than expected, even though his quarterbacks are horrible.
It's some people in the rear view mirror.
Way back.
Been playing for a long time.
Your team's the best right now.
Hey,
Gee.
right now,
He's
listen.
about to get to 3-0.
Hey, listen, we just trying to week by week, every day is a new week.
Thankfully,
I
I
don't want to talk
salvaged
about
the
being
win.
3-0, Bull.
Thankfully, I
Thank
salvaged a win against Anthony.
I don't want to talk about it. I lost by 4 points.
Yeah, it was close. I thought you would beat me the whole day, and I pulled
was
it out.
so ready to have my
I
first
pulled
win.
it out in the end. That was good.
All right, let's go ahead and take the first bet card here,
All
Steve.
right, here we go. Where's my bet card? Yeah, I like the Giants tonight. I don't really like either team.
Yeah, it's a little different.
I hate the NFC East. I think even the Eagles, I think, are overrated. But these two teams are, mediocre teams. But I just like the Giants a little more. Cooper Rush played well in the first half against the Bengals, then did nothing in the second half. Saquon Barkley looks like he's back to himself. He
better be.
He has a good game.
16 points,
And
baby.
I think the Giants win at
So
home.
the Eagles ain't good?
I said I think they're overrated. They're good. but I think they're-
the Eagles.
I don't like.
are very impressive.
Here's
to
my
me.
theory on football. I don't change my judgments on players and teams based on 3 games.
So you gotta have
It's
a
too
sample
small
size.
a sample size.
You have a
Now,
sample size.
if it backs up something I believed going into the season, then
You're all
You
for it.
roll with it.
well, because I already believed
Yeah, I
it.
know.
But I'm not going to make a dramatic unless there's an injury, unless a great, Now,
There's nobody in the NFC though that I look at and go, "Wow, they're really."
No, the
terrible."
AFC's much better, but some teams off to slow starts. All right, that's my card. So there you go. I didn't mention the rest of it, but we got to keep it moving.
We got G up
G's
next.
card.
We used to act opposite, bro. I think I said bad on all these.
Oh yeah, I went good. You went bad.
Yeah, man. I'm not a believer in the Giants. I like the Cowboys
Oh, I'm
defense.
not a believer in them either.
Cowboys defense is solid, man. Like you said, old boy destroyed the Bengals. Michael Parsons out here moving around. I think
He's banged up, I think, going into this game, although it probably won't matter.
I think there's going to be a lower score in the game. I think it's a mirage for the Giants. They've been getting a couple dink and dunk passes, and they've been doing their thing. Saquon Barkley has played better. He does kind of look like the old Saquon, but the Cowboys don't have the quarterback. So I'm going with under on that as well. I think all those bets are bad.
Where's Brad here?
All right, bring me up here. Anthony, bring me up here. So I went good because the Giants are going to take the points and get over on the Cowboys because the Cowboys just the Cowboys. That's just who they are. At some point, they always materialize and end up being the same old Cowboys, right? Now, point total, I don't think both of the offense are good enough to score over 39 points, so we're going with the bad on that. And then you got Cooper Rush and Daniel Jones. You ain't getting no 400 yards out of here.
400.
That's not a very high bar.
That is pathetic if they can't
We're
get
playing Cooper Rush.
Yeah.
Cooper Rush.
186.
And then we got Daniel Jones,
210.
who they wanted to run out of town here
It's a sad
just
matchup.
30 days ago.
It is a sad matchup, but because it's Cowboys and Giants, it's on Monday Night Football. Does Jason have a card or no?
Yeah, Jason
Jason's
has some
card.
bets here. We'll take them right now.
Jason's card.
Yeah, mine's the same as Bulls.
Oh, look at that.
Okay.
The tag team is together on this.
I hate the Cowboys and can never
I hate
never
them
take
too.
the Cowboys on anything. The over, I just don't like taking the under. You always root for the over and more points. And as I just said, that's not a very high bar. 405 yards in today's NFL. If you can't between two teams, you can have one guy throw for 170, and you can. I mean, some bad quarterbacks can throw for 200 yards in today's
Jacoby
NFL.
Brissett.
Well, I didn't
We've
want to
seen the
say
last
it
2
because he's
weeks.
played well the last 2
According
weeks.
to the numbers, he's a top 3
Yeah,
quarterback.
okay, well, check back with me in a month and let's see where those numbers are.
Cowboys in need of a quarterback.
405,
Kaepernick
that's not a big
sitting on
number.
the sideline and they say,
It could be under because neither of these guys is any good.
Right. I need 16 points out of Saquon Barkley. I don't
There
care
you
about
go.
anything else.
Stop
All
playing
right,
with me.
that's good bet, bad bet, guys. Quickly, before we get back to the Browns specifically, some other things from the weekend in the division. Obviously, the Ravens won against New England, and the Bengals got their first win against the Jets. That was, I don't know if you guys watched that.
Yeah, I watched
Yeah, I
it.
watched the whole thing.
Yep.
I'll say this for Baltimore though. I had to take my words back on Lamar Jackson.
He looks like an MVP again.
He looks he has bet on himself and like
And right now-
you're gonna
now-
pay me every dime.
Right now, he looks like he's winning. I said, and I love Lamar Jackson. I've had him in my keeper league fantasy team for 5 years. He's won me 2 championships and off to a great start. But I'll tell you what,
Good. 10.
I said before the year he's still got more to prove,
Yeah.
and I thought he did.
Well-
Because he wasn't good last year, and the year before that he was okay since his MVP season. But so far, through 3 games, he's
Well,
playing at that level.
Between them and the Miami Dolphins. That's one of them teams that we looked at
Yeah.
it, we say, ooh, we could chalk that one up possibly. No.
I'm not
I watched quite a bit of
sold
that.
on
I
that
watched quite
yet.
a bit of that game yesterday. Guys were dropping left and right. It
I'm
was
not
so hot on
I'm
the
not
field.
sold on the Miami.
I'm not sold on
yet.
Miami either. It's going to be Thursday night. Miami at Cincinnati is a good game. I'm looking forward to that one.
It is.
Joe
The
Burrow's gonna
Ravens, though, their defense looks bad. They gave up a ton of points to the
Yeah.
Patriots.
Yeah.
The Patriots offense
And obviously
stinks.
they unraveled the week before against Miami.
Right.
I mean, it was a really small. Obviously, it was only a couple weeks, but I gave Mike a graph or a stat of like Baltimore and Cleveland had 2 of the worst fourth quarter defenses going into week 3. Obviously, with yards allowed and points allowed.
And like the Browns, I was going to say Baltimore hasn't played any good offenses. They did play Miami, but they haven't played any really good quarterbacks yet.
I'm gonna flip over to Cincinnati. Joe Burrow's gonna get killed.
No, I don't agree with that.
Oh, they're killing him.
He only got sacked once yesterday.
Man, he was bailing out so much that he anticipated pressure.
No,
this thing is crazy down there.
No.
I mean, this is sad.
He threw
this is
for-
sad.
he
This
didn't
is-
get hit much
Oh,
yesterday.
yes, he did.
No, he didn't. I watched the whole game.
This is sad. This is sad.
No,
I'm
Brad, I'm telling you. They have an offensive line with 4 new players. It takes time. Quarterbacks get hit. Suck it up, Buttercup. Let's go.
let me tell you
Play
something.
Get
ball.
hit less than they ever did before.
Getting hit,
He didn't get hit much yesterday. He really did
getting
not.
hit and getting killed. Have you seen the first 3 games here?
First 2 games, he got hit a lot because it's a new offensive line.
I said the first 3 games here.
Yeah, but he didn't get hit much yesterday.
Bull, you stand back there and get hit like that, then you come back and tell me, is it okay?
What can I tell you? I mean, guys take hits. Some of it's on him. He holds the ball a long time to try to make a play.
I think they did show some positive signs.
The offensive line was much better yesterday.
Getting back on track. They look more like the Bengals I saw last year. It's always good to get Jamar Chase the ball and get him in the end zone.
Yeah.
It feels a little better. I think the key to them is just Joe Mixon, right? If Joe Mixon
he didn't have much of a game
He
yesterday.
had a crazy year last year.
Yeah.
I thought he was the catalyst. But I'm gonna tell you what, man, this thing is gonna come down to the wire.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to come down to the last game of the season because I don't see a team out there that's saying, hey, pick me. I'm head and shoulders better than everybody.
No, right now, no. I mean, the Bengals are 1-2. The Chiefs are 1-2. The Chargers are 1-2. You thought those were 3 of the best teams so far?
You see Mahomes be enemy?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Chiefs are 2-1, right?
Yeah. Mahomes would be.
Yeah, Chiefs are 2-1.
Yeah, they're 2-1.
Wait, they lost yesterday, didn't they?
Mahomes will be
Yeah, but they
enemy.
beat the Chargers
At
last week.
halftime,
Yeah.
Mahomes telling the enemy, you better start calling some plays here.
Well,
I'm not playing with you.
This just goes to show you the NFL, man. It's why to me, and me and my dad, we always talk about it. It's why that it is. It's not because of all of the 24-hour news cycle or fantasy or that other stuff. It's just the fact that you could turn a game on and you literally have no clue who's going to win. Even if it's a team that's favored, right? Yep. Who would have thought, we watching the game, Tampa Bay versus Green Bay, right? That game was so low scoring.
It was awful.
All the points at a premium.
To your point, we can get into this as the week goes on. Well, you guys can. I won't be back until Thursday. Browns have a lot harder game Sunday than I think people realize. Atlanta's better.
You're out of your mind.
No,
Atlanta's terrible. Their defense is horrible.
Atlanta
Defense is horrible. They got no quarterback.
I watched them play last week. They in the dome. I'm going to tell you what. They got Kyle Pitts. They ain't who you worry about.
They have some good skill
Drake
position guys.
London is out here looking like a monster.
Let's not make excuses. First of all, it's the NFL. No game is easy. Second of all, the Browns should win this game because the Falcons
should win it. They should win it.
And we're not going to know. Like, we can go bananas on the Browns all we want, and I, think they're going to be great eventually. But the reality is that we don't know about the Browns till they start playing good teams. And I haven't played any good teams.
I think Atlanta's better than the Jets.
I do too.
They're a bad team.
I think they're better than the Jets.
Are they going to be over 500?
Probably not.
No. That's what I'm saying. None of the teams they played.
I'm just saying, like, I saw the Falcons were ranked, I think, 32nd in the power rankings. That's not the worst team in football. No, I don't think.
I guess I look at it like this, and you guys look long range. I don't look long range. I look for that day.
Yeah.
Can I get by that 60 minutes? That's the kind of team. This is not a team that we can start forecasting down the road.
The Browns are not playing well enough on defense.
No, so you sit here, you got to worry about 60 minutes of football, period.
If I will say this, forecasting this game.
Yeah.
If Jacoby Brissett come out here and throw another game where he out here looking flawless, I might have to rethink a bunch of these other games. I'm rethinking the New England Patriot game. I'm not a believer in that. Mac Jones is going to be banged up a little bit.
And Herbert's
banged up.
Line is banged up.
They said Mac
Jones is now hurt.
Mac Jones got a high ankle sprain.
But none of that has anything to do with Jacoby Brissett. Listen, we said, at least I did. I think everyone agreed. The first 4 games is not the barrier or not the marker for Jacoby Brissett.
No.
The marker begins weeks 5 through 11, 12 when the schedule really intensifies. That's where we will really judge Jacoby Brissett.
Well, now they get a read on you, Jason. Now they got tape. They got tape.
And I wrote this months ago. I talked to people who watched Jacoby in Indianapolis, and they said the longer he plays, the more he's exposed.
That's any player in any sport. I will tell you that. That's why I asked John about the receivers, because at some point here, they're going to stop this thing in Amari Cooper. You're not getting no 100 yards from me, buddy.
But I do agree with him in terms of if you have Amari Cooper and David Njoku, if David can – we're not expecting him to play the way he did against Pittsburgh.
No,
but if he can be a serviceable, competent guy you can rely on to make plays down the field, you can get by with Amari Cooper, David Njoku, and Kareem Hunt.
Well,
I think you can get by with that.
You still need balance. That's why I always want to – at least I'm not asking for an all-star on the other side, or a pro guy on the other side, but somebody that's serviceable.
Right.
But I will tell you this. When I looked at Tampa Bay – Tom Brady missed some receivers. I'm like, well, who are these dudes, right?
He missed.
Well, they're all. Yeah, Mike Evans is suspended.
I know.
Chris Godwin's hurt, and Julio Jones.
And see what you look like when you got trash out there. You look trashy.
I know this is so far away, but I'm going to be so fascinated. I think Kevin Stefanski, if he can, move out of his way right here in the first, 11 games, I think he is the shoe-in for Coach of the Year if they make the playoffs. Because I'm sitting here for myself thinking, how are they going to reincorporate Deshaun Watson if this is what you've been playing for 11 weeks, right? You're used to, this is my ball control game, this is the plays, the receivers look good, they understand what their roles are, the running backs understand what we're going to lean on. Man, for me, I would think it would be so difficult to get a nice Ferrari, right, and not know that you can't go that fast to start with from a car, because I would be tempted to be like, I can go up top.
I think it's funny though that a week ago we're killing Stefanski in the Jet game. We're saying maybe take away his play calling duties. I think I might have said that.
I never said that.
And now he's Coach of the Year.
I ain't going that far.
But I got people on Twitter. And by the way, 2 things. As much as I'm positive about the Browns right now, 2 things that are on my nerves. First of all, don't call Kevin Stefanski a great coach, because people keep saying 2 things in comparison to the Guardians. Number 1, that we have 2 great coaches. Okay, stop it. Terry Francona is a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
until proven otherwise, Kevin Stefanski's a solid NFL coach. Now, maybe he's going to be great, but you can't call him. If you start calling Kevin Stefanski great, you're throwing it around. Number 2, don't give me the stat about the Guardians and Browns both being in first place. That's stupid. The Guardians won their division. The Browns have played 3 games. We're all happy that they're 2-1. We're all happy they're in first place. But that's an absurd comparison. It's 3 games.
Hey, boy, I'm an old school guy, right? So you know what I'm reminded of when I look at Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson? It reminds me of Miami Dolphins when Greasy got hurt and Earl Morrow came in.
That's old. That is old school.
It is.
But Morrow came in now. He played the heck out that game, right? Because remember when Greasy got healthy, at the end they were like, I might stay with my man
there was
here.
Zero chance they're sticking with Brissett. Zero chance.
I think that's they've already. But here's some people gonna say, let them. God forbid, let them be 8-3.
Oh my God.
God forbid.
I see it coming.
They done beat somebody
Miami.
they ain't supposed to beat.
Well,
That's a fantastic problem to have. Deshaun Watson still
And they're
playing
all
that game.
idiots. Anyone who says Jacoby Brissett should be starting over Deshaun Watson is an idiot.
Hey, Jacoby
should not be allowed to watch
Jacoby
NFL
will
games.
take himself out the game. Nah, I know what it is.
But Brad, to your point about the receivers, we've said it. It's an old saying that an elite quarterback can make a bad receiver better than an elite receiver can make a bad quarterback. And there's going to be a lot of rust to knock off that and everything else. But I just wonder how much different this receiver room will look when Deshaun
Well, let me ask you right now, how many receivers can you name that are healthy on the Packers, the Buccaneers, and the Ravens?
Not many.
Not many.
I do like the kid from Baltimore, though, the young kid.
From Minnesota?
No, Baltimore.
Rashad Bateman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought.
But you couldn't even think of his name, right?
Well, he's on my fancy team. That's why I like him. His name slipped my mind, but I think
he's a good player.
He's going to be a player.
Your fantasy team, but somebody gave you all the players too.
No, just the first few rounds. I did the rest myself.
May not have cheated.
I watched the Bills play, and to me, I've always said it. Like, I just think the Bills have to run the football more to be the team that they want. I know Josh Allen is good, but they got him doing a bunch. He reminds me of like playing LeBron when he was in the Cavs the first time. They just gave him the ball and said, "Go do your thing, big homie."
I don't know. They should have won that game. They had the ball for 40 minutes yesterday.
That was weird.
They should have, and they had it at the half-yard line and couldn't get in. Buffalo should have won that game. I'm telling you, it was 130 degrees or whatever on the field of Miami. Guys were dropping left and right.
Crazy.
That was just an odd game that Buffalo should have won.
I still can't believe the Colts beat the Chiefs.
That was unbelievable.
That's crazy.
How did that happen? Nice comeback by the Vikings, beating the Lions. That was an interesting game.
I couldn't believe that. I told you the Lions have been playing great football.
The Lions aren't bad. I'll tell you that. They aren't bad. That St. Brown kid is all right.
Equanimous.
I like them. Swift. They got the nice.
He's hurt though. He's out a few weeks.
I tell you what. I look at this division, and if Baltimore usually starts off fast anyway. They always start off fast. But if Baltimore can find their running game a little bit, I don't think J.K. Dobbins is right physically.
No, you could.
But I don't think their defense is any good.
But right now, it's the first time I've ever seen the Ravens get led by their offense, not their defense.
Right. Yeah. I can't tell. I hope this Jets game doesn't come back to bite us in the butt. I really.
Who's got more on their shoulders, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, to carry a team? I would actually say it was Lamar, right?
I think it's Lamar.
Yeah.
I mean, their defense hasn't looked very good. It wasn't good last year.
Buffalo's got a ton of injuries right now defensively.
Right, and the Ravens do have a pretty good secondary, at least when it's healthy. But the rest of their defense has not been very good. Wasn't very good last year.
There's no Stephon Diggs on the.
They don't have a great wide receiver. Their only great skill position player is Mark Andrews. Now he's sensational.
Yeah.
Right.
And Lamar looks for him all the time as he should. But we all like Dobbins, but he hasn't played much.
Yeah.
He's been hurt. And none of their other backs are any good. He don't have a ton around him, and yet he's just guy's amazing.
He's playing for that contract. You could tell that. He's going at a high level.
Real quick.
Very high level.
Kevin Stefanski's talking now. Zach Jackson, my colleague, The Athletic, tweeted. Stefanski says it's possible Clowney plays this week.
Oh, wow.
Quote, no update. We'll see as the week goes on.
Yeah, Stefanski doesn't usually give you much.
Yeah, especially it's Monday. It's a long ways till game day.
But
that's at least encouraging.
Yeah, it is. They
didn't put him on IR. They didn't put him on IR.
Why is it you think that they don't value the defensive tackle? Why is that? I'm lost to that.
I just think from a standpoint, like, the difference between an elite defensive tackle and a regular defensive tackle, the ceiling ain't that much. This is not a big of a difference. Like, if I look at Aaron Donald, right, they'll say 5 defensive tackles that really make a difference. Like, you have to block them, because defensive tackles will have to rush the passer.
To your point.
And stop the run.
To your point, if you were watching that Bengals-Jets game yesterday, the Jets could not run the ball. And then DJ Reader, who is one of the best defensive tackles in the game, he's not, you don't hear about him much because he doesn't get sacks, right? He's just a big run stopper who dominates in there. He got hurt in that game, and then the Jets were able to run the ball the rest of the way.
Yep, that's what it is.
And there's no stats for that, really, like no traditional stats, and you don't see it. But that's important to have that guy.
And the Browns don't have, I mean, it's bad. Like you said, it's the worst defensive tackle room in the game. Now, the thing about it is, the great part about being in the AFC North at the time is there's a less of an emphasis on running the football. It's boring running the football because you might get 2 yards and you still got to stick with it. But a lot of coaches don't have that intestinal fortitude to stick with the run. And you look at they'll throw 50 times with Burrow. They'll give the ball to Lamar Jackson. He'll run around and throw it. When you look at it in the Steelers, they can't find a quarterback, but they still don't run it a ton. So the Browns kind of get away with it a little bit because if you're going to run the football on us, all right, well, go ahead and do that. But we would rather play the pass game.
Well, guys, as we head down the home stretch of this show, I got to tell you this. You want to put that back up so I just give that stat real quick? Does it look like an interesting stat real quick before we move it on? Keep it moving. Dan Murphy, Browns PR guy. Browns have rushed for 572 yards, the most by any Browns team in the first 3 games since 1958.
And they didn't even run it, Dearness Johnson.
He ain't even seen the field.
He was active in the last game. We heard
they don't need him unless one of their guys gets hurt.
No, you need him really. You need him more for returns than anything.
Yeah,
kick returns.
Yeah, I was going to get to that, Anthony, is that we got to get, we are about 150 subscribers away from 14,000. 15,000. We weren't on the air 6 months ago, and now we're almost at 15,000 subscribers. We want to get to 15,000 before the end of this week. So help us get there. If your friends, your family, your cousin, your mom, whoever it may be, subscribe to our YouTube page, The Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. You can find my podcast there as well. You hit the bell to get the alert, and whenever we put something out, you'll get it there.
See, what y'all got to understand is we had 2.5?
We are about 120 away.
We talk about 2.5 million.
Views. Yeah, we're at 2.5 million.
So we didn't do
120 subscribers away.
We done did 2.5, and I'm gonna tell you what, you ain't getting no instant reaction nowhere, right?
I'm getting word from McNuggets that we're actually at 2.3.
2.3, we almost close to that. So here's the thing. Most of these people and most of these different outlets, you got to wait, right? You got to listen to commercials. You got to wait on the post-game show. You don't got to do none of that. We got you covered. This is immediate interaction. And you might have to sit on hold for about 5 hours to get your call taken. I know I happen to work in radio. It kind of jam-packed with 4 lines. We give instant reaction on the screen in our post-game shows. We give you breaking news. Something happened, we just get up out of the bed with the bat signal. We just pop up. We're already on the sticks.
That's right.
So make sure you make this the #1 joint on the internet. We like all the other people, but this is a place you need to get all your
Tell
Browns
about the bat signal.
Every Browns
Tell about
post-game.
the bat signal.
Every Browns post-game live. Breaking news on anything live. And we're adding, for the Guardians in the playoffs, I will be on live at the end of every Guardians playoff game. I got to figure out how to do it live. I got to get a class from you guys on how to go,
we'll teach
go
you.
live.
All right.
But I'll be doing that in the playoffs, so there you go.
Have we talked about our new situation with the Cavs? See, we haven't even talked about it. Now, we getting an opportunity to be at the press conferences.
Right.
Yeah,
we
that's
had
right.
media day. We ramping up for that coverage as well. So
That's
it's
right.
not just the Guardians, not just Browns. We looking heavy for the Cavs this season.
That's right. And Anthony and Earl are going to Cavs Media Day today. Jason's going too. And so we'll have some reaction and response from that on tomorrow's show. We'll talk about that. And when Jason rejoins us on Thursday, we'll have his take from Cavs Media Day as well. All right, guys, before we get to final takes, how about some final thoughts? We spent the first hour on the Guardians. Who would you like to see the Guardians play? Do you have a favorite, Jason?
Well, right now, the Mariners, if their lineup's going to be this beat up, give me Seattle with no Julio Rodriguez and Suarez. and I like my odds. You're right; they do have the best pitching of everybody, though. Listen, the games are at home.
Yeah.
I think they can take any of them. I think, I said earlier, no predictions. They could lose the first 2 games and be out. They could go to the series. I think this team is going to move on. I think they at least make the divisional round, and then we'll see what happens there.
The Guardians will be living at home, the players, until at least 2 weeks from tomorrow. How big is that, Brad, as someone who played?
That's huge. I mean, you don't have to hit the road. You don't have to stay in a hotel.
Yeah.
You stay in familiar surroundings. You know what time it is to leave. You know how much traffic is in front of you to get to the ballpark.
Right.
It's just a familiarity about being in a place in an environment that's going to be at a high-pitched level. Because I expect the facility to be sold out to the fullest. Right. I expect the fans to come out and support this club. But the thing I worry about, and I prefer to play Toronto. I just do. I just feel like it's a better setup for me. But the thing I'm concerned about is that when you have all this youth, youth can get you 2 ways. It can get you going or get you killed, right? And so there always has to be a balance here. And I just hope for the standpoint that we have a lid on, when you look at this videos on here, right? They're enjoying the moment. Well, there's some real work after that too, right? Real work, because now, before when you were sneaking by people, they now understand that this team is for real.
Yeah.
They're like, this could be a problem. So we've got to be able to meet that mentality out here, so make sure that we're ready to go.
G, you know what the fans are thinking better than anybody. Do you believe? I mean, I don't know what the numbers are on today's show. I think they were pretty good compared to when we've talked about the Guardians in the past. I got a thumbs up on that. I know my podcast, when I've talked a lot about Guardians the last week, the numbers have picked up almost, not quite the Browns level, but much closer than in the past. You think a lot of fans are excited right now?
Oh, yeah. Listen, they're very excited because when you clinch this early, what you can do is now you signal to everybody, oh, we took care of our business. We in regardless. So now it can sink in with people a little longer. It sits with you. Just like we talk about the players sinking in, hey, I'm in the playoffs. This is kind of big. It's the same way with the fans. They're like, hold on. Guardians is in the playoffs. This kind of big. Now you understand that the gravity of it. And if they go out, I would rather see play Toronto. If Toronto got a good lineup, that's fine. I feel like pitching is what counts anyway. I've seen great hitting teams blanked in the playoffs with great lineups. I just don't want to play another team that has tremendous pitching and I don't get on runs. But I think this was one of the biggest series, I would say, in the history of the Guardians. And I say the Guardians, not the Indians, because if they win, they are stamping the Guardians. The Indians are an old organization for other people, and they really cling on to that. This can have an opportunity. If you can make a magical run, now you can cultivate that passion for the Guardians. And I think if you get to the ALCS, I think everybody's head over heels. ALCS, I go crazy.
Yeah, that would be huge. We talk about an 8-game losing streak in the playoffs. You really need this. There are fans sitting out there like, okay, we've seen this before. They're going to lose, and they'll be right there to jump and rip the fans that got into this if it does happen. I think what's big, you're going to sell off playoff games, but you have 2 weeks to get ready. We know for certain the Guardians are hosting that first-round playoff. Yeah. We know they can't. Technically, they could still grab the 2 seed if they won every game and the Yankees lost every game, but obviously that's not going to happen. So they are pretty much locked into the 3 seed. We know exactly when we don't know the times of the games, but we know the dates. We know they're home, and they have a couple of weeks to really hype this up.
To your point, I would give Clase the entire series off with the Rays. Just shut them down.
100%.
For the whole
100%.
series. And then,
don't let them see them anyway, because you might play them.
That's exactly right. And Karinchak missed a lot of time this year. I don't think it's as important.
But you want to use Clase a little against Kansas City. Yeah. Just keep them, you want them to be rusty.
6 games, use them in two or 3. And maybe, I don't know, the day before the last game, work it out.
Right.
So that you don't want him resting for too long, but shut his arm down. Give him at least 3-4 days off.
Yeah.
He was off yesterday, off day today. If he misses that 3 games, that's almost a full week off.
Exactly. He's shown a tiny bit of vulnerability lately. He gave the home run the other day.
4 games in 5 days.
They used him so much.
Yeah.
A tiny bit. I mean, I trust him 100% going into the playoffs. But there's been a tiny crack in September. Give him a breather here going in. But the bullpen as a whole looks good. Really the only thing I'm worried about with the Guardians right now is if you get to the next round, that 4th starter has been, I don't trust that. But like the lineup, there's a couple of guys that aren't great, but overall I trust the lineup. I definitely trust the defense. I definitely trust the pen, and I have huge trust in the first 2 starters. Little less in Quantrill, but still enough. I think they're in a good place.
The workaround for the fourth starter is what Tito did against Toronto. Who is I lost the name. The pitcher who.
Oh, yeah, the lefty.
And everyone bought his wedding registry. But anyway.
Right, and he's never pitched again for them.
But Tito didn't let him see him a second time.
No.
It's one time through the lineup, and you probably do that with Savali and Plesac.
Right.
You'd piggyback them both.
Yes.
Let them go through the order one time, and that's it. And then that should get you through 5 or 6 innings.
Oh, it's going to drive me
And then
crazy.
you can turn it over to your regular relievers after
drive
that.
me
That's
crazy.
how
I
I would
can't
handle
think of what it
probably
is.
a fourth starter.
Yeah.
Just don't let them see you a second time.
All right, guys, time for final thoughts. Jason, start.
I don't have anything. I got to go to Cavs. Brad, go ahead.
Okay.
I got to get to Cavs.
Let's talk about.
Since you're going to,
What's that?
Since you give me the final take, let me come in here, get a nice shot here, right?
Yeah.
It's just a great time to be a Cleveland fan. High optimism, Cleveland Browns. I mean, fever pitch. I was down to the tailgate, fever pitch the other day. Guardians doing very, very well, right? Ready to roll into the playoffs. And now we're coming up to one of my favorite times of the season. This Cavalier season is about to get going here. We finally look like we've got this thing solidified. We've got a legitimate all-stars on the team now here, post-LeBron. This thing is set to ride. I think we may be one player away from solidifying the entire rotation. But it's just high optimism in this town. I don't want this town to get by it, right? I want us to be supportive of the Guardians coming to these playoffs. I want us to stick with the Browns, even though we live and die with the Browns on Sunday, right? And then the Cavaliers. So your spring, summer, fall, and winter in this town, there's plenty of appetizing entrees out here to endeavor in and take a part of. And so I'm very hopeful that the Cavaliers are going to live up to their end of the bargain here and do their thing, continue the second step here to get to the playoffs. And I'm just hopeful when I go to the Browns, Jacoby Brissett still plays hard and sets me up for the close. He's a setup guy, right? Waiting for the closer. And I know Deshaun Watson is not far from coming back into the building, and I need you to get prepared here because your man Jacoby is doing what's necessary to set you up. And then lastly, I need Jose Ramirez to remain the leader in the clubhouse to bring these young kids on in. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it.
Man, you know what? I'm going to piggyback right off this. This is early. We get Jason Lloyd right up out of here. This is a great time to be alive in Cleveland, but it's a great time for this show. You know why? We doing some stuff here. We about to get going where we doing some stuff where we taking a piece here. We doing everything. He mentioned all of the stuff with the Cavs, but don't forget we do Buckeye stuff too. And I'm gonna keep it real. Buckeyes, after we did a post game for Wisconsin, they look like they are going to make the college football playoffs. So you got a college football playoff you could possibly be in. You got a potential run for the Guardians in Major League Baseball. We got high expectations. You know you got four bona fide stars for the Cavs, young guys, hungry, man, please. Then you get an opportunity. Hey, we know what it could have been. Deshaun Watson could have been gone for a whole year, 2 years indefinitely. Look what we got. Not only does he going to get an opportunity to come back week 11, but guess what? You got Jacoby Brissett playing out of his mind. This is the best anybody has seen him play. And you're getting carried by Nick Chubb, who to me might be the one of the best top 5 players in the league, regardless of position. And he might win the rushing title this year. All of these things are all on the plate, and there's no better time to be on a platform like YouTube that is boundless. We can touch you, and there's so many different places. It's unorthodox. We get in the interviews. So y'all keep it locked. The best is yet to come. We got that 15,000, but by December, we might be through the stratosphere. Get on that train now.
By the way, one other thing we're going to be doing this week, it's going to be the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is going to be at the Guardians game. Thursday is our 100th episode of the show.
No.
Wow.
The 100. Who could have imagined
They
that?
told us we wouldn't get 30 episodes, didn't they?
Man, they did.
They
were counting us. Some people were counting us out after a few weeks. 100th episode on Thursday, and in honor of that, we're going to be going down to the Guardians game. And Jay, I think, is representing us throwing the first pitch.
Awesome. So that's crazy.
A lot of pressure on him.
The production team will be hanging out in the stands rooting you guys on, too.
That's right.
Hey, man, you better throw a strike, too, Jay.
I mean, he's an amateur pitcher.
And don't be going from the kiddie mound either. I don't want to see you halfway the distance, bro. Don't you play around.
All right. My final take is this. Shout out to – so everybody knows how snobby I am about pizza, and I have my few places that I go to. Well, I tried a new place that people have been telling me about for a long time, and I was out in the area, Il Forno. Forno.
Oh, yeah.
In Avon.
You're in my area now.
Yes. So I was out. My son had a birthday party out at that main event.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we dropped him off, my wife and I. I'm like, we got to go check out this pizza place that's over here. It's right near that main event, so it was really close. I'm like, I heard about this place. People told me it was good. But I'm like, is there really going to be good pizza out in Avon, Ohio? I mean, what are the odds of that? Well, the odds were high because that pizza was phenomenal. It was excellent.
I gotta try it now.
I got to go back again because I never give a full judgment until I go twice. But it has an excellent chance to take over the top spot in my Northeast Ohio pizza rankings.
It's terrific, yeah.
It is excellent. The guy there, I don't know who owns the guy. I think he's from Italy. I don't know. Place was great, good atmosphere there, and the pizza was
the crust is
top-notch.
sensational.
Perfect. The crust was my favorite part.
Yeah.
The crust was my favorite part. It's the best crust. That, without a doubt, it's the best crust. Overall pizza, it's already in my top 3. Could go to number 1.
And this is bull we talking about.
I'm very snobby. I am the snobbiest of snobs when it comes to pizza. Shout out, man. That was good.
All right, I'll give you a quick final take.
Yeah.
Real quick.
It's your turn.
No, I don't care. I'm taking it back.
Taking it back.
Tom Pelissero tweeting out that Mac Jones' high ankle sprain is fairly severe, may need surgery. The Browns' schedule is starting to
They're
turn
getting some
a
breaks
little
on
bit.
injuries
They
here.
are getting some breaks. Justin Herbert shouldn't be playing football right now.
Yeah.
We'll see how long.
He didn't look good.
He may have to shut it down if Mac Jones is out with a high ankle sprain.
So you could end up seeing Chase Daniel in Week 5, and who's their backup? The Patriots. I don't even know.
Hoyer, yeah.
Oh,
Hoyer.
Brian Hoyer.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling real optimistic.
Oh, my God.
It looked like a gauntlet weeks 5 through 11. Let's see. Let's wait and see what happens. But
All right. Good stuff, guys. We're going to Browns camp. We're going, not me, but these guys are going to Cavs camp, so we're getting out of here a little bit early. Congrats to the Guardians. And congrats to me on eating great pizza. We'll see you later. Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
Mom.